Five by fives in chat if you're watching this show live. This is Shuttle Sunday, the latest episode. We're on STS-61-C. This will be dedicated to this mission because we do want to split this up with the following mission, which I'm sure most of you who are Shuttle fans will know. That will be a dedicated show as well, because the next mission after this one is 51L, which was, of course, the Challenger disaster. So this is going to be the last happy Shuttle Sunday until the very morbid and sad 51L mission, which we will be covering. We didn't want to skip over that one mission because obviously that's something we have to recognise, that while we had a lot of achievements with Space Shuttle, we also had two major disasters, and we're not going to sugarcoat that at all. So we're doing this show live on Space Coast Live. We also record it, so people who are listening and recording will be able to sort of like go back and actually review this video. But luckily, it's not just me talking. Say hello, Sawyer. Hello, Sawyer.
Hello, Chris. Happy Shuttle Sunday. It is a very exciting mission. I see some people already recognizing faces just from the thumbnail, so there's a lot of fun to talk about actually on this one.
Also popping in from time to time will be Jack. Say hello, Jack.
Hello, Jack. It's Shuttle Sunday, so it's a good day, and I'm excited to learn more about STS-61-C.
There we go. Right, so this mission is involving quite a bit of a milestone in itself, because I'm sure most of you here will recognise two of the crew straight away. We had both NASA administrators in here. The current NASA administrator, Bill Nelson, and also Charlie Bolden, who was a NASA administrator. So it's kind of ironic how both of these people were on the same flight. And maybe, Sawyer, you can describe in the best possible way why Bill Nelson was on this, because he was in politics by this time. He wasn't someone who trained to be an astronaut from the start. He was someone who was brought in on the crew as a politician, correct?
Exactly. This was the second, basically, politician in space. The first one was Jake Garn on STS-51D, which was the year before. I believe we covered that mission. But basically, they wanted to go for places where there was major play in the space field, and he was a Democratic representative from Florida, which, again, yeah, Florida, the launch site for all the shuttles. It was a way to try and get in good with him so that he would vote positively for NASA things in the future.
Now, if you're watching on the live show, which is on Space Coast Live on the Sundays, when we do Shuttle Sundays, it's always on Space Coast Live. That's one of your little programming notes there. You are welcome to ask questions in the live show, and do that by doing NASA Spaceflight in chat, followed by your question. That question will go into a panel, and we'll read it out and we'll try and answer it best we can. So keep it on shuttle questions, I would say, but we'll take any questions relevant, because the space shuttle is something that was relevant and still is today to the new rockets. I make a great point of, I say a great point, I make a big point. That's probably better phrasing of saying that the Starship program is what the shuttle program wanted to be, with the rapid reusability. Of course, Starship is proving that more than anything else, because that it's going to be a fully reusable vehicle, whereas the Space Shuttle was not. And also, we're hoping that when they get to crew launches, Starship will be a lot safer, like Falcon 9 is proving to be with the crewed launches of Dragon, because it was a very challenging mission, shall we say. And I'm being very careful not to make too many references to 51L, but there are some, because this was so close to 51L, you will see some crossover. There is actually a photograph I'll be showing ahead of launch, which actually shows Challenger on 39B, while 39A was hosting Columbia for this mission. That's how close we are now to the Challenger disaster. So we'll be very careful with the crossover here, but there will be some crossover. Anyway, shall we start showing some nice photographs, because we have the preparation photographs here, which I can go through, showing the crew again. That's the pure photograph of the crew there, and we've got many of these because crew portraits, they tend to do quite a few photographs, including their uniform dress code. Look at this.
Oh, fancy.
And you can see here, Charlie Bolden was a US Marine. So when we say General Charlie Bolden, he didn't like it. I noticed when he was NASA administrator, he said, "Please call me Charlie." Never did like being called General. But let's be respectful of his rank, because he was a US Marine General, and that is the US Marine Corps. So that is something very important. And there you can see how you've got the civilians in the back in their fancy suits,
Well,
whereas you've got the military.
Can't forget Hoot Gibson also is a naval officer.
Yeah.
That's the person on the right. So yeah, in case you're wondering, it was commanded by Hoot, although his real name is Robert. Everyone just calls him Hoot. and pilot Charlie Bolden.
There we go. And we got some nice preparation photographs here. There's Charlie Bolden as a pilot. There's, I want to call him Senator Administrator Bill Nelson because I'm so used to using that phrase now. We'll go with Bill Nelson for now because he was a senator. Oh, was he a senator by then? Or was he a congressman?
He was still the House of Representatives, but yeah, so representative, soon to be senator, soon to be astronaut, soon to be administrator Nelson.
Yeah, the man likes his titles. There we go. Getting suited up. This is a cool photograph. There's lots of photographs of preparation, but I thought this was great. What shall I wear today? That is the ultimate astronaut cupboard, clothes cupboard, isn't it? It's like closet of where it's all the same, but I'm going to take that one.
Yeah, that's the same as my closet, except everything is orange.
Oh, I did like that photograph, though. I'm definitely showing that one. And they're the zero-G flights and Sawyer flex time straight away, because Sawyer, you've done this, haven't you, Sawyer?
I have, yeah. This was on the NASA plane, which is a KC-135. The one I was on was a modified 727. But yes, that is the zero-G training that they do with the plane that goes up, does a big old parabola, and you get about 30-ish seconds of weightlessness.
It's the first Sawyer flex of Shuttle Sunday. There may be many more coming as well. There we go, there's a crew.
Yeah, I mean,
This is the photograph I wanted to mention, by the way. So we got 39A and 39B. Remember, everything had launched, correct me if I'm wrong, Sawyer, everything had launched from 39A up to this point.
correct.
39B was going to be the first flight, and of course it was Challenger's 51L mission, whereas 61-C was going from 39A still. And Jack, the cranes are still there. There we go. Look, the cranes are still there. We are getting closer and closer to whether they actually do the final modification to what we were used to seeing in the latter days of the space shuttle missions. And I am looking forward to some of the later ones because as we get closer and closer to the last ones after Columbia's loss, we have so much resources. It's ridiculous the amount of resources we got thanks to the likes of Nate Mauler and the Max Q Astro 95 guys. We have so much to show you. So we are going through some historical photographs in this point in time, but that's fine.
And then I can really Sawyer flex because I also have photos from when I was at those launches
We'll
from
actually have
130 and 135.
Sawyer flex with Sawyer photographs. That's the ultimate Sawyer flex.
Yeah, which I should have brought in the photos for this one. I'm kicking myself now because I have photos with Bill Nelson, Charlie Bolden, and Hoot Gibson individually.
I want to know what happened to these models.
I still want one.
I do as well. I know I was watching the Flame Trench on Friday night, my time, and EJ's got a model of a Starship. I'm thinking, I want that. I'd love some. That's a big model, by the way. That's not a small model. That's a big shuttle model. But imagine if you got the one that was actually used on the presentation photographs. That'd be amazing. Someone's got it. It's not been thrown away. No chance.
Well,
Look at this. They've got a. It's that. I assume it's a cake or a pie. Come on, Americans got to help me out here because Americans
cake.
talk about pies and cakes in different ways. Yeah, there we go. But that's the patch. So that's really cool.
oh yeah, that was one of the things they did for a while there with the shuttle program was, instead of just the steak and eggs breakfast or whatever it would be, they also had a special cake made for them.
There's walkout. Again, this will be something that will change after 51L because they're still in the blue flight suits. They do move on to the pumpkin suits after Challenger for obvious reasons. But it is going to be the end of an era soon with these blue suits. That's the fun one. They always do a fun one. It's guess who's who. Luckily, their name badges are still there. But they're all in their helmets. They did that for a fun photograph.
And it also helps that one person was sponsored by RCA to fly, Robert Saker. So I'm sure you can guess who that is as well, based off of the giant RCA patch.
I can't see it. Help me out, Sawyer.
Left. All the way on the left.
Oh,
So-
there we are. Oh, there we go. Sawyer spotted it. I didn't see it. There it is. Very cool. Yeah, I did not know that.
Yeah,
we go.
it's sponsored since that was one of the main payloads was Satcom K1, designed by RCA America.
That's why we have you on, Sawyer. There's a payload. I think one of these is a hitchhiker. Yes, there it is. Hitchhiker payload.
The first hitchhiker, by the way.
Yeah. So there was a hitchhiker. It's a little quiz question saying which shuttle mission. So if you've got a millionaire, this could be worth some money for you. which shuttle mission had a hitchhiker on board? You could say, well, the first hitchhiker, I should say. And you could go 61C. And when you win $1 million, you can do a super chat for $12 to us as a repayment for that. $12.
Which, yeah, by the way, for those who don't know, it was designed by the Goddard Space Flight Center in Maryland. It was their first of 2 different size designs, and unlike the autonomous getaway specials, which there were a bunch on this as well, this one had its own specialized communication channels, which allowed real-time customer interaction and control versus just the gas ones where you open the door, expose it, and close it.
Cool. I always start skipping past photographs when I start talking about them. So I'm going to go back. There we go. And then we got more preparations here. There's the patch. We all like the patches. Sawyer, anything noticeable that you always find the little Easter eggs in patches? This one's quite nice. It's a lovely design, but I don't think it's really telling us too much, or is it?
It actually is. Besides the fact that you've got all of their names obviously in gold with the mission specialists towards the bottom on their own little thing there, you'll notice that the vehicle there is going through the colorful re-entry shockwaves. And that, I believe, is in part due to the major changes that had been done to the Space Shuttle Columbia, which the last time Columbia flew was STS-9 prior to this. And they had some major upgrades, and one of those was actually inside of the nose cone. They added specialized sensors that are meant to be able to monitor all of the pressures of reentry. So that was part of it, and I'm sure you know one of the other major experiments and improvements that was made during this mission, right?
You're going to tell us,
nose.
Sawyer. I'm going to let you keep talking because I've got actually on that first point you made there. I have a lovely landing photograph showing those sensors on the nose cone, on the nose cap, so I can actually show that later on in Shuttle Sunday. We'll actually see that. But yeah, continue going because you're doing a better explanation than I can.
Yeah, so in terms of the other reentry data that they were looking for, that is where we get the world famous SILTS pod. Or at
I've
least
got those as
famous
well,
for
yeah.
Columbia. The Shuttle Infrared Lee Side Temperature Sensing Experiment, which basically the main goal is to get high resolution infrared pictures of reentry, in particular on the lee side, which is the upper part of Columbia's port wing and the fuselage as it reenters. So a lot of studies on reentry on the vehicle on this mission, so appropriate to have the reentry shockwaves.
I do have photographs of those as well on the landing photographs. So we got lots of things we can go back on there. What I'm going to do on this Shuttle Sunday is I'm going to show the launch as shown on NASA TV because I think we're doing a lot on these Shuttle Sundays of showing the presentation by the crew, and we've got that video as well. But I want to show the actual launch itself with the NASA commentary, and actually you would have seen it live because I think that is kind of really nice to see and nice to hear as well. So 2 things here. This is going to be a clean video. I will stop it before it goes on too long in descent because the rest of it is basically just the final burn. We'll do the main parts SRB separation, but you'll hear a lot of call outs because I had a few issues during the actual launch itself, the ascent phase. But also tell me if you can hear the audio because that's always a challenge with my laptop coming through. So let's go for it. Let's see what happens.
Coming up on T-minus 31 seconds and go for auto sequence start.
TLS go for auto sequence start.
Have a ground launch sequencer go for auto sequence start. Columbia's general purpose computers now have primary control of critical vehicle functions. T-minus 20 seconds. Everything is go. The orbiter's onboard computers have on the SRB ignition hold down post and teaser umbilical. T-minus 12 seconds. T-minus 10. Go for engine start. T-minus 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We have ignition. We have liftoff. Liftoff of Columbia on mission 61C. And the shuttle has cleared the tower.
Good roll, 73 degrees. Let's see, ship on the proper attitude for the flight downrange. Standing by now to throttle down. All three main engines running smoothly at 104% of rated thrust. Houston, Columbia, Charlie, isolated up ahead. A, we're clear on the right, right engine. Roger, we copy. Step down now to 85%. That problem isolated by pilot Charlie Bolden, not impacting ascent phase. Engine still running smoothly at 85, now stepping down to 67% as the shock wave builds up in the vehicle. Then we pass through the period of maximum dynamic pressure on the vehicle. And all Navy Houston, go and throttle up. At 1 minute 25 seconds, all main engines back at 104% of rated thrust and operating smoothly. Velocity 4,000 feet per second, altitude 13 miles, distance downrange 12 miles. APU performance very smooth. All auxiliary power units providing 102-106% of hydraulic pressure. Fuel cells running smoothly. Main engines continue to look great. 2 minutes into the flight, velocity 5,500 feet per second, altitude. We got PC less than 50. Roger. That call precursor to solid rocket separation, which now occurring and occurs nominally. That call and that event right on time at 2 minutes 6 seconds. Guidance now conversion. We'll stand by now for the flight dynamics officer assessment of performance nominal. Roger, nominal performance. And that call as a result of the flight dynamics officer assessment of SRB performance, which was as predicted.
There we go. I'm glad that worked.
Oh, that
Also,
sound brought me back to actually seeing shuttle launches. That's how crisp and clear that was.
I'll
The
tell you what.
the
Sorry,
one
Jack,
thing
go
that
on.
the one thing that stuck out to me was the go at throttle up call out, because we are, so like you said at the start of the show, Chris, getting so close to Challenger. That call out, it sends a chill up my spine, and I obviously knew we were not watching 51L. We're watching what is it, 51C, but
61. Or
yeah, that call
yeah.
out, I don't know, it just gives me willies.
Also, a shout out to Adrian who's pinging me in the back room. Obviously, not watching this show. Damon shame time. I love this, by the way, this view. I paused it on this view. I took it back a little bit, in fact, because you can see a lot of people, especially new people, don't really understand, and I completely understand because I was the same to start with. The rockets don't just go up. They have to curve and get onto their orbital. They're going for downrange. It's not just height, it's downrange as well. You can really see it here. You can see after separation that the shuttle is pushing downrange big time here.
Yeah. I mean, beautiful. Someone, by the way, in chat saying, too bad the booster couldn't land like SpaceX boosters. They still landed. For those who didn't know, those were landed and recovered by the ships Freedom Star and Liberty Star.
That's right. On parachutes. Apart from the Ares 1X, the silly rocket, where one of the chutes failed and it put a massive dent in the side of it. But that was just one of the few hilarious things that happened on Ares 1X. And that's why I always say it's a silly rocket. Anyway, but the actual boost, yeah. I mean, they're recovered on parachutes. There's some videos I'll be showing in future missions as well, with a lot more footage of the SRB recovery process from actual separation all the way back down through parachute, splashdown, and then recovery from the Freedom Star and Liberty Star ships. Yeah,
especially once they added the onboard cameras to those. But this launch, sure, they had the issues during it. I mean, they had issues getting this mission off the ground, for those who don't know. The original launch date was supposed to be December 18th, 1985. That was delayed a day because they needed to close out one of the aft compartments. So they went for the 19th. That scrubbed at T-minus 14 seconds due to what turned out to be a faulty indicator, but it was saying that the right SRB, the hydraulic power unit, was exceeding redline limits. Then they delayed 18 days to January 6th, 1986. That was halted right as they transitioned to the onboard computers at T-minus 31 seconds because they accidentally drained about 4,000 pounds of liquid oxygen from the external tank. Turns out they kind of need that. They then scrubbed on the 7th at T-minus 9 minutes due to bad weather at the transatlantic abort sites, which were Morone, Spain, and Dakar, Senegal. January 9th was delayed due to a lock sensor breaking off and lodging into one of the engine prevalves. The launch set for the 10th was delayed because of bad weather, and that was the launch finally on January 12th.
Also, Sawyer, this viewpoint here. Now we are talking about the SRBs, which were obviously a lot of people say were very, very, very loud compared to other rockets, and also very, very bright compared to other rockets. Is that a fair assessment? Because I've seen, this is not even the best example, but this ascent part, it lights up the area. I've seen some better examples of this, by the way, where it just absolutely lights up the area from darkness to brightness of day. Do you still get it with the other rockets, or is it something that very unique with the SRBs on both Shuttle and SLS?
It still turns night into day, that is for sure. It still gets quite bright, but once you add in SRBs, it changes everything. It's even brighter. The first Vulcan flight was absolutely crazy even with 2 SRBs, but with Shuttle and with SLS, it is a whole different kind of night into day. It is like a bright white light versus, just a lit sky.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it, Sawyer. It's like a sunrise instead of just, oh, it got bright at night. It really is insane.
That's probably a better frame, actually. You can see just literally lit up the whole area. That is really amazing. And we do have some questions, by the way. I think we'll do some questions before showing more pictures, and then we'll have another video to play and then some more pictures. So we got plenty of content for just this one mission. Phil asks, do you think, it's a Starship question, but that's fine. Do you think Starship will have a crew safety blow-off built in? I don't know what blow-off is, Phil. Like just a crew section, or like shuttle the whole ship. Right, Phil. You might have to explain what you mean by blow-off. Do you mean separation of the crew cabin, like was proposed on Shuttle 2, maybe? Sorry, did you get that?
That's what it sounds like to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what they mean.
Do we think they'll have that on Starship? Because there isn't really. I mean, Phil's question is very valid when you think about the abort modes for Starship. We don't know any information about how they're going to do it, other than literally just releasing the booster and letting the ship go on its merry way. But that doesn't really preclude an issue with the ship side of things. So that's where the crew compartment blow off, shall we call it, would come into play, right?
I think that's a Jack question. I would think so.
Jack. I don't want to bring in too many. This is a hypothetical question. Crew safety on Starship. The vehicle's having a bad day.
Right.
How do you save the crew?
You just stage. That's our understanding as of right now, anyways. Right? Like something's going wrong with Super Heavy. Something's going on with launch. You hot stage, get the ship out of there ASAP. If something's going wrong with ship, it's like when you shake the 8-ball and it says ask again later. Yeah, I don't know. We'll have to see how it goes.
The fun thing is there's very bright people at SpaceX who would not be listening to this shuttle stream. I wonder why they're doing that, but not listening to this shuttle stream going, you know what, guys? You know what we've forgotten about? Crew safety. I was listening to Shuttle Sunday. We completely forgot about crew safety. We'll have a meeting on Monday about this. They'll know what they're doing. They're completely prepared for this sort of thing. The fact is we're not fully involved in the discussions because they don't make them public. I also saw, and I was getting digressed by while I was talking there, because I saw a reference to people replying to Exploring with Jessica about crew safety. I missed the original question, Jessica, but Exploring with Jessica, but I do get the references to how we do not hide away from the fact that while we do celebrate the space shuttle, and I love the space shuttle, I am the first, and Sawyer will be as well, and so will Jack, be the first to tell you it was not a safe vehicle. It was expensive. It had issues. It was issues by design from before it even started. It did not achieve a lot of the things it was set out to do, and it had a massive safety issue. Do not ever think we're ever going to sugarcoat that or paper over the cracks with the issues they've had, not least when the next Shuttle Sunday is going to be 51L. There were issues with this vehicle But I always take that as a kind of positive in a way that the missions that were successful are a testament to the engineers who worked on making this vehicle work for the missions it did work on, because that is probably set a lot of templates and a lot of safety regulations and a lot of achievements that we're having with vehicles today because of the hard lessons learned during the space shuttle program. Would you say that's fair, Sawyer?
Yeah, I think that's very fair. I mean, a 1 in 72 chance of loss of crew is not fantastic, but from the very beginning, it was a lot of compromises to make everyone happy, and in the end, made no one happy.
Yeah, I could definitely go down a rabbit hole with this because people say shuttle hugger and they think, wow, you're completely ignoring the issues that shuttle had. No, absolutely to the contrary. You're probably the first people to tell you the space shuttle, such as the risk there, 1 in 72, what have you. It was not ideal at all. It would not have been passed today, not with today's regulations and what have you. It was something that there was always a chance, and I always get the nerves. I don't get the nerves anymore from a shuttle launch because when you get more involved with learning about the space shuttle, you know about the things that could go wrong. You're thinking it really is sort of like, nails down nails down the side of your thing. It's really kind of like, I don't want to go too far with this, but it was something where when the shuttle retired, I thought, well, at least that risk is over now. Bringing it back onto more jovial subjects, Westy asks, was there an audible drop? The shuttle going through Max Q. Was that
Um,
an audible drop? I don't think so. I don't think I ever heard an audible drop in the sound during the actual ramp down, because the 3RS-25s would go down from 104.5% of rated thrust to 72. I don't think we ever heard that on the actual audio tracks of shuttle launches.
I never heard it in person. It still continued to be loud, but also when you're on the ground at that point, you also have the fact that it's moving away from you at quite a rapid speed anyway.
Indeed. Matrix asks, do we have any numbers on how many times sections of the shuttle boosters were reused? It'd be interesting to know. First of all, Matrix, well done for saying sections, because they did reuse the casings. They didn't reuse the boosters. It was a bit of a non-club where they were saying that, oh, we've recovered the boosters, we're going to reuse the boosters. It wasn't like that. They brought them back to port and they literally took them apart. Cleaned them out, took them apart, and that was very helpful for post-flight investigations. There was a lot of what they call IFA reviews, which is called in-flight anomaly. Doesn't mean there was an anomaly, just the review is called that. And they could check over every part of the booster that was recovered for any issues and then use that lesson learned. And that's something we mentioned on 51L. Lessons learned that they should then take note of before the next launch. So you know where I'm going with this, don't you?
I do.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm
But
trying to recall, but there was a paper that was released to the media for Artemis 1 that showed what missions each individual segment had flown on. I mean, there were ones going back to some of the early days of the shuttle program. Like, we're talking around the time that we're covering now. There was even ones that were on STS-107 that flew again.
yeah, I do remember Chris G. Our famed Chris G, who now works for SpaceX, was very big on tracking the casings. I'm sure he had a thread in L2 where he was tracking them back in the day. I will try and find that out for the next Shuttle Sunday, because it might be a nice little diversion away from what else we'll be talking about on that Shuttle Sunday about the casings. But there was a lot of reused casings, to the point that they were like very old shuttle missions that some cases where they're getting reused on the latter missions.
Found it for Artemis 1.
There we go.
For all of them, it was covered 52 different shuttle flights
Wow.
for the left booster and 45 for the right booster. I mean, just looking at it, the frustum on the right, STS-61-G, we've covered that mission already. We're talking way back, 51I. All of these missions, STS-27R, 32R, I mean, it goes all the way back to the early days.
There we go. I've got some nice photographs of the launch. This one hasn't got many photographs. It's a night launch for obvious reasons that the night launches didn't have as many many photographs as the other missions for some reason. I've noticed that as a trend. Maybe it's just back in the day they didn't want to do it that way. But a nice reflection shot there. So that's a lovely photograph.
Oh,
That's
I can tell you why.
Why?
The SRBs are so stupidly bright. Like we were talking about
Ah,
how it turns the sky so bright that it's really hard to find the balance of being able to see the shuttle because it's a night launch while not completely blowing out the frame with how bright those SRBs are. So they're either going to be overexposed typically or underexposed. And as it gets higher up in flight, you're basically just taking a picture of a giant white light.
there we go. And that's the cool. I could have left that one rather than the frame of the video we were showing because that really does show it very well. You can see it's launching from here. Obviously goes up roll program. A lot of this plume has been hit by wind shear, so that's why it's a bit wobbly. But this probably shows it best. We can see this is after, I believe it's after SRB separation. It looks like it was about there. And then the shuttle's going downrange on its trajectory to its orbit. It's a very unique angle. That looks like it's below the mobile launch platform. Yeah, it is. It's from literally from the ground. That is very unique photograph, and you can see the crane is still there. There's a crane, and also there's the rotating service structure. That's what they use most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time to insert the payload. And it also encompassed around the orbiter and provided weather protection and allowed people to do work on the outside of the space shuttle while it was at the pad.
Yeah, they didn't remove that or rotate it away typically until L-1 day.
There we go. That's a very nice photograph of launch with a reflection shot. That's probably the best quality one we got at this mission. Let's see how far we can zoom in here. There we go. Look at this. Lovely. There's a lightning protection pole that's still there to this day. Lightning protection pole on top of the fixed service structure. The fixed service structure, as I've said on previous Shuttle Sundays, but I'll mention it again, that still exists. It's been modified slightly modified. It looks a lot nicer and a lot cleaner now because they're giving it a nice paint job. And it's now with SpaceX for Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy at 39A. And there's a big Starship tower over this side here somewhere.
But what's the one tower for? Why is it not 4 towers? I'm kidding.
Well, the funny thing is, we do have documentation. One day we'll probably do a little, when we've got a short mission we've got not enough coverage of, we'll actually go through the lightning protection system because it actually is quite interesting. It looks like one big lightning rod. It's not. It's actually got lines which go down.
Mhm.
And they've had lightning strikes at the pad many times.
With shuttle on it, yeah.
Oh, a colour photograph of that view. There we go. Didn't realise I had that. That's from the ground level. That camera did not survive, I would say.
Or
Because that look.
I mean, they put them in very, very thick glass protective coverings, but
Yeah.
yeah.
We have some slow motion views of the QVIS, we call it, the QVIS cameras on the actual pad itself, taking super slow mo. And those cameras look like they had very melted lenses by the time the film cut out and moved on to the next section. I don't think they did very well, but I think that's not the point. The point is documenting and getting information, engineering information. That's what the camera's for, not for fancy TV views, they're for documentation purposes. There we go. There's our launch photographs. I'll do a few mission photographs and we'll go on to the video. Here we go. I say a few, I've got loads. Hang on, here we go. All right, let's put this full screen. There we go. So we're going to go through some of the crew photographs here and random photographs. I've just downloaded all of these because I just thought they were kind of cool, just showing them on orbit.
By the way, it was unique having Franklin Chang Diaz, who you saw in that first photo, flying from Costa Rica, which was the first Costa Rican-born astronaut.
There we go. There's Bill Nelson. Doing an experiment. He's obviously been put to good use there.
He worked with, I believe it was the University of Alabama, on specific cancer research while he was in orbit.
There we go. I see lots of people in chat. Do at next spaceflight before you question it goes into our panel. We'll come back to it and we can do a Q&A because that's the best way of making sure it doesn't scroll off the screen. There we go. Nice. That's a nice photograph. Nice happy photograph. Because it's not fun. The astronauts do say it's kind of like when you're in orbit, you get headaches, you get stuffy noses and what have you. So it's not happy, but obviously enjoying what they're doing there. Hello,
Yeah.
charging mode.
Yeah, they all get puffy heads in space because normally gravity helps move the blood out of your head easier and downward. But
Indeed. Yeah. Random photographs. I like it though because it just shows them on orbit working. They've got the mid deck and the flight deck. That obviously looks like mid deck to me. He almost looks like he doesn't want a photograph taken.
Yeah.
Hoot.
Hoot looks happy.
Hoot looks happy, yes. And that's a good way, by the way. Taking a picture of your commander. I don't want my photograph taken. There's Bill Nelson again, looking happy. There's a crew photo. I like these crew photographs. And of course, when you're in Zero or Micro G, you can do the fancy poses with Charlie Bolden now on his side.
Gotta love it. Those are always the best.
That's how you wash your hair. That's something not many of us at NSF can talk about. But, well, so you can. But that's how you wash your hair in space. It's literally, you got to make sure the water doesn't go everywhere for a start. But you got your towel there.
Well, that was Away. They also have no rinse shampoo that you just put in and wipe off.
Lovely. Then the one photograph there. That's quite a nice photograph.
Yeah, just use one of the air hoses to dry off.
Now, what's this? Something, did a tile fall off?
um, that's definitely some kind of debris.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was intentional or not, because there was an experiment that was being done to be able to come up with future high resolution telescopes for the Department of Defense that wanted to test the environment of debris around the orbiter.
There
Probably
we go.
not intentional, but
Yeah.
I guess it helped with one of the experiments.
I do know that when I downloaded it from RL2 section, there was no context on that photograph. So I don't know for a fact what it was, but I downloaded it all the same because I thought it was interesting. Now we do know what this one is, don't we? This is the satellite that deployed. Sorry, would you like to talk about the satellite?
No, I'm good.
Yeah,
Sure.
of course you are.
That is Satcom K1, which, as we talked about earlier, was for RCA America, one of their communications satellites. As mentioned, they also brought one of their own payload specialists to help with the deploy and everything related to it.
There we go. Lord of Random. It's not a burnt pizza. I did see that. Moving on. There's
By the way,
deploy.
also just while we were talking about that really quick, with the
Yep.
PAMD again, for the upper stage motor, that thing which we're deploying here in low Earth orbit, making it all the way to geosynchronous orbit, by the way. That is a
Nice.
geosynchronous satellite, 23,000 miles up.
Yeah, again, boys and girls, the shuttle went to low Earth orbit, but they could deploy payloads were set for geo because they had the PAMDs, which would take them out there with the little motors. The most important part of a space shuttle, the toilet. There we go. That's what the toilet looks like on a space shuttle. Sure, everyone's appreciating that. But people
Yeah.
do ask. People go out. How did they go to the toilet in space?
Yeah, that hose in the bottom right is exactly what you think it's for, by the way.
Yeah, they got that on the ISS as well.
Yep. If it
There's a
ain't
crew
broke,
photograph
don't
again.
fix it. Although they do break often.
Now, this is where we have the random photograph of Earth from space. Answers in chat if you know immediately if you recognise this area of the world. If not, if you're watching the replay, you can post your comments below the video if you recognise it. There's always somebody who works it out. Yeah, it is Mr. Map Time. We need Ryan Caton on this because he'll know where this is. But he cheats. He'll use AI. He'll basically take that photograph and put it into AI and they'll find it for him. But I like to find. Yes,
I
sorry.
have a guess.
Oh,
I
hello.
could be wrong, but given one of our crew members, I wonder if that is Costa Rica.
Ah. Answers in chat and also in the comment section of the video on the replay. If you're watching this live or watching the recording, remember that's why we take questions and stuff. People are watching the recorded video going, how are they asking live questions when they're recording video? It's because we do a live show first and then we put the recording of the live show into the YouTube channel. Rio de Janeiro is a guess in chat. South America is another guess as well. Yeah, someone will know this. Someone will know this area. There
That's
we go.
why my thought would be something like Costa Rica, given the fact that you
Given the
have
fact
the
that-
first
yeah.
Costa Rican astronaut who also specifically did live events in Spanish. And those were aired, for those who want to go way back, that was available via NASA Select.
Ooh, NASA Select. Living in the future now.
Yeah, the precursor to NASA TV, which was the precursor to NASA Plus, which can go away because I liked NASA TV better.
Yep. Actually, Woodworker Don's actually found out what it is. it looks like Earth. Thanks, Woodworker Don. Yeah, that's probably accurate. I don't think we can say it's inaccurate because it technically is. There we go, well done. Right, so we have another video to play. I've got loads of landing photographs, and we could talk about some of the things Sawyer was talking about earlier. But we're going to play the mission video because there's lots of Easter eggs in this video. I will be skipping through it. It's 20-odd minutes long, so I'll be skipping through parts of it. But I have watched it already, so I will be not skipping over anything interesting. I'll be going through the best part of the explanation of this mission by the crew themselves after they landed. So bear with me again for the video time.
By the way, seeing a lot of people say Rio de Janeiro, so.
Yep, and of course, all good plans laid to waste again because we have a crash on the video player thing. So I'll let Jay fix it. Jay's in the background. Big thanks to Jay for always being in the background trying to fix these things. I don't think we've had a Shuttle Sunday yet where we've had two videos play or one video play without an issue. But there we go. That's the challenges of taking these old VHS videos, putting them onto VLC, and trying to play them on a live stream.
Well, I can mention a couple things if we need to stall a little longer.
We do.
Payload-wise, a couple of interesting ones was the Champ, by the way, which was supposed to be the first of multiple experiments to study Halley's Comet over the coming months. Obviously, they were only able to observe on this particular mission, but you had a Comet Halley photography thing. You had a bunch of student experiments. You had some eggs for tiny moths that were brought up. And someone actually brought up oil paintings to see if the oil actually stayed on an untreated canvas and if you could basically paint in space, which was later proven with watercolors by Cyan Proctor on Inspiration 4.
We don't need to show the video now, so you've told us everything we need to know. There we go. We can just leave the video. In fact, I'm told the video should play now. So, fingers crossed. As Westy says, the video is pending. I have literally got the first frame of the video actually on screen now, so I'm assuming it worked. Again, let me know if the actual audio comes through, because I've got a funny feeling that'll be the next issue we'll have, but we'll play it and see what happens. Here we go.
Dynamic testing that we were going to be doing with the Shockwave on Columbia. And this, of course, pictures us on the morning breakfast before launch, and we tried to wear a different shirt each day so that we'd know just which attempt this was. And as I'm sure you'll recall, we went through 5 man-ups before we finally managed to launch. This is the actual morning that we finally did launch. We were getting very good at this procedure, walking out to the crew van, and actually we got very good at walking back from the crew van too, I'm afraid. Bill Nelson obviously very ready to go on this particular day. We manned up in the early morning darkness, aiming at a 6 a.m. liftoff.
We did lift off, I think, about 6:55 in the morning, and as a first-time guy, I must say that I thought Hoot and the other experienced guys had me quite well prepared for what we were about to encounter. You know, it seemed pretty calm and collected there until the main engines lit, and I got a slight glow off from the outside, but when the solid rocket boosters ignited, I knew that I was in for a rude awakening, that all my preparation, you know, I don't know whether it was going to stand me in good stead or not. We did the roll program and right away got an alarm. So that put me at ease because I thought right away, oh, it's just like being in the simulator, and that set the tone for the rest of the ascent. It was very, very impressive as a first-time flyer. We lifted off in darkness and then started seeing sunlight almost right away when we got heads down. We finally got to an altitude of about 61 miles when we had the main engines cut off, and that was almost 8.5 minutes later. We did have only 2 alarms during the ascent. Both of them turned out to be old sensors and no real big problem. The most impressive thing to me about the ascent from a physical point of view was the force that was exerted during the 3G throttle down close to the main engine cutoff. There you saw the solid rocket booster separation. I had planned to do a lot of reach and visibility checks, and in feeling the force on my chest, I just said, well, forget about that. I'm going to sit here and enjoy the ride. People that were at the Cape said that they thought the launch itself was spectacular.
I guess the thing for me was the impression of first getting unstrapped from the seat and getting ready to the environment of weightlessness. And here are some scenes of people just getting used to this new environment, which was truly new for me and Charlie. And of course, on the first day, the first thing that we had to do was kind of get our minds set for the deploying of the satellite that we had to do later on that day. What you see here out the window, out the back window, is of course the familiar sun shield that later on gets open, and the satellite inside of it is made to spin. And here are some of the operations in the cabin getting ready to launch that satellite. It really is a coordinated team effort, even though Pinky and I were the had our primary responsibility to deploy the satellite. It really is a team effort. The orbiter has to be precisely pointed in just the right attitude and with no motion, so that the satellite doesn't get an additional kick in a wrong direction. And Pinky and I work together. Everybody backs everybody else. And of course, the satellite is released in a spinning motion, which allows it to maintain the orientation that the orbiter imparts it. We were looking for any signs or any telltale signs of wobbling in the satellite, and of course we found none. We kept tracking that satellite with the cameras and zooming in and out in the nozzle portion of the satellite to make sure that there was no indications or any signs of wobbling in the satellite, and it was just steady as a rock. And of course, a timer is set as soon as the satellite leaves the cargo bay that will ignite the PKM motor later on the other side of the Earth.
Hoot had mentioned the number of getaway special canisters we had on board. It was 13, and they were all controlled with this controller that you see me holding in my left hand. And what we do is to set the status of a variety of different relays which apply power and make functions happen for the different getaway special cans, 3 of which were the ultraviolet astronomy experiment, which you may remember from our pre-flight conference I was quite interested in. As Franklin mentioned in connection with the SATCOM deployment, the UVX is also a team effort, and it required one of us to operate the controller and one of us to make sure that whoever was operating the controller did it right, and then Hoot and Charlie, you see here in the forward flight deck, had to point the orbiter and therefore the telescope in the proper direction so that we could take the data, and we're all looking forward to getting a report on how that went. Of course, all that data is recorded on board, and so we're not sure yet exactly how much data we were able to take for the experimenters.
The orbit lighting, we were unsuccessful.
Yeah, one of the other things we were doing is shown right here. Charlie and I, Charlie did most of the operation on the IR-IE camera while I was looking out the window and watching on the monitor, which is up in the corner and you can't really see it too well there. Watching the scenes out the window, and especially Hoot was helping out here a lot, looking down to compare what we were seeing on the ground, because when you're looking in the IR on the monitor, it doesn't look like the real world, and trying to direct Charlie is where to point the thing.
You take a lot of viewing of the world, and we had some time on this flight to do some pretty extensive Earth observations. We obtained a number of pictures that had never been taken from space before of places on the Earth. And as a veteran, I can tell you never get tired of seeing the world. This is the Irrawaddy River Delta down in Thailand, and the city of Rangoon there is just on the eastern side of the Himalayan mountains. We did get a number of 70-millimeter still shots of the rare clear days over the Himalayas, but it's an absolutely awe-inspiring sight. I'm drifting across the Himalayas at 5 miles a second and to see no clouds in sight.
An interesting thing to me about Earth observations was being a pilot. It seemed visually like you were flying in a regular airplane, you know, at 41,000 feet or so. The one thing that reminded you of where you were was the fact that, for example, crossing the United States in 10 minutes. I had never been in an airplane that could do that, so that was the one thing that gave you the rude awakening that you were way up there.
And I used to exposure set and all that, and that was my job. I was supposed to keep all the cameras in good shape, and here is the loading of some of the 16-millimeter film in the Aeroflex camera. And by God, we shot every bit of film that we had.
Franklin did a great job, except he let us run out of film by the end.
Yeah, by the time we ended up the mission, we were down to the black and white 35 millimeter film.
I might mention we had a brief shot there of Congressman Bill Nelson on the middeck. Bill was just as busy as he could be every single time that anyone passed through the middeck, and we probably omitted Bill a little bit during the movie, but we have quite a few slides that we're going to ask Bill to address once we get out of the movie.
In that last scene, he conscripted a little help from me with one of his experiments to do some eye-hand coordination, which is over and above the original experiment, DSO, which I was involved in, which was otter goggles. It's one of the things they're trying to examine to decide whether or not there is indeed what the relationship is between the space adaptation syndrome and how we could possibly train people for it. And unfortunately, we had a little problem with the goggles early on in the mission, but in this scene, Pinky and I disemboweled it and put it back together, and it got it working again so we could continue with the experiment.
And that seemed to work very well, and it was a nice time for us to review what had happened during the day and to discuss what was coming up next, which always seemed to me to be re-entry. It seemed like we were always talking about re-entry. You can see Bob found a comfortable corner in which to stuff himself there, where he was able to keep most of his food under control.
Of course, I wasn't always trying to.
And this was a pretty good spot. What you really needed was someplace you could jam yourself in and hold still to get through the meal.
Cabin stove was something we got to practice started practicing it about midway through the mission. And we got pretty good at it. I guess this is Steve trying to battle there with one of the cables.
We thought we had given you what we hoped was pretty decent in-cabin TV, and we apologize for the lack of in-cabin TV for the last two or three. We'd stowed the camera away, so we didn't break it back out again.
After 300 hours of spaceflight, you can really learn how to adapt yourself to zero-G and do the tasks a lot more rapidly than you ever could on the ground, and most of the things like stowing the cabin were really no problem at all.
With some exception.
Almost stowed.
Cables develop a mind of their own.
This helps you understand why we didn't break the camera and bag out.
The real difficulty of this scene was holding the camera still while he was trying not to giggle at Steve.
I had no interest in getting that out again after.
This is another activity that we really did spend quite a bit of time doing with our three practice attempts to deorbit and land. Was cleaning the cabin up. We tried to make sure that we returned a relatively clean orbiter when we came back down to land, and this shows Steve and Franklin and Bob and Charlie cleaning the bird up and trying to get some of our coffee stains and things like that off the orbiter so we could bring him back a relatively nice bird.
The thing that's really amazing to me was the fact that, having been on an aircraft carrier for brief periods of time, Hoot and I being associated with the Naval Service, it's like being in a city. It doesn't look like that, but it really is. I guess the third time was the charm for us. We had tried to get down, and finally this was real entry morning. We were able to catch a final glimpse out the back windows of another sun. I think this was a sunrise right over the vertical tail. You can't see it very well, but we had the shuttle imaging infrared lee-side test stuff up on the pod. This is actually the landing itself. The entry was spectacular.
Unfortunately, there wasn't a whole lot that we could film on the landing because it was all dark, so the only footage that we had was when the orbiter actually came within view of the big lights down on the ground, our xenon lights. Touchdown was about 1,500 feet down the runway at Edwards. The orbiter was very smooth handling, very nice and responsive. The nose gear steering was used a little bit through the landing roll. Not a very big input, but just a little bit of nose gear steering prior to brake application. We got on the brakes just below 140 knots, held a relatively constant 8 feet per second squared deceleration rate until we got wheel stop. I guess we used something like 11,500 feet of the runway in getting stopped. We understand that we perhaps had a little bit of brake chipping on the right outboard brake, but other than that, we don't have a whole lot of reports of brake damage. So I think the brakes people are relatively pleased with how the brakes held up and how the wheels and tires made out on this. We came popping out probably about 45 minutes after touchdown. The cabin was a little bit warm by the time we got out, so the cold morning desert air at 32 degrees felt real nice to me. And I think all of us were happy to be back on the ground again. Even though spaceflight is a...
Oh, I cut him off, but spaceflight isn't easy. That's what he says at the end of the video. But I can show some landing photographs, some more landing photographs, because we've got the photograph here of actual landing. As you could see in the video, it was very, very dark. It was actually quite interesting because I saw night landings before, and especially in recent missions of the shuttle era, where they had massive floodlights, you would see the orbiter returning. But that's the only photograph they've already got of the actual landing itself.
Well, here's the other thing with that.
Mhm.
They originally were going to be landing this at KSC. They made a whole big kit and caboodle about the fact this was going to finally land back at KSC, first time in almost a year. So they were going to land on the 17th. Then they realized, actually, we probably want to get these shuttles turned around quicker, so let's land on the 16th. Weather said, nope, you're not going on the 16th. Nope, you're not going on the 17th. They were going to try for KSC on the 18th. They did one more orbit to try and extend their chances and ended up saying, no, we're going to go to Edwards. So that may be part of it too, is the fact that they were trying so hard to get this to the Cape that the last minute they're like, all right, we have to go out to California.
There we go. A lovely photograph from the future. There's, as now, NASA Administrator, Senator Bill Nelson, actually seeing his patch. And there was someone got a photograph at Michoud, I think it was, on Marshall Space Flight Center, just where the patches are all there. And basically he was visiting for something SLS related, probably, or Artemis related. And he obviously recognized his patch. And I just thought it was great. We got that photograph.
Also, a fun
Right.
thing with Senator, or whatever he was at the time, Nelson, part of the whole big deal of, oh, we're going to land back in Florida. You have the Democratic representative from Florida. They had a plan that as soon as he landed, he was going to get a fresh Florida orange, which Florida is famous for. But since they diverted out to California as a joke, someone greeted him with a basket of California oranges and grapefruits instead.
Sawyer facts. We need a hashtag for Sawyer facts. There we go. Right, Sawyer, this is like everyone's going to go, that's a nice landing photograph. Let's see if we can go in on a nose cone. Look at this. There we go. You see, we knew about this already. It's probably called a DTO, a detailed test objective. That's what you used to call it during the space shuttle era. We had a special objective for a mission. They call it a DTO. And now you can see the actual nose cap, which is kind of rubberized, isn't it? It's basically got the sensors on it there, and they got the data from it. We've also got the silts, by the way.
That's called the SEEDS, by the way.
Oh,
The
thank you.
Shuttle Entry Air Data System.
Nice. But you can see you got precursor there. The fact the top of the rudder speed brake looks different to the other orbiters. I've got better photographs. First, nice little aft photograph there. That's a beautiful photograph. I'm sure EJ would know all these trucks, by the way.
Oh,
Would
for
know
sure.
all the makes of the trucks. We've got some really good future ones as well, especially. Oh, that's a better photograph. Look at this.
Nice.
You can see, go zoom right in on this. Look at this. There we go. And that's
Beautiful.
something you would not see on the other orbiters. There we go. That's top of the.
Interestingly, also, they had a hole in the nose wheel well, too, for a different experiment.
Well, I haven't got any photographs of that, so that's no go.
Yeah, that's why I just mentioned it as a one sentence versus the Silts pod, which, iconic.
The cool thing about the silts is you can actually see still the tiles around it. They will be VO numbers. I wonder if any of them. There you go, VO.
Yep.
Whenever you see a school that gets a shuttle tile, it does happen quite a lot. We have people who come into our forum and say, I've got this shuttle tile that was donated to us, to our school. And we always go, what is the VO number? Because they always have a VO and then a number. And we can usually find it in the tracking on the TPS maps we've got in L2. And you have to be L2 member to do it. You ask in the normal forum and we'll find it for you and then tell you which tile it was and what history it has. But they're the VO numbers. There you go. But
Yeah, and
let's
I have
go
one
back.
that's a VT, which meant it was a test article.
Of course you've got one, Sawyer. It's Sawyer Flex 2 of the shuttle stream. There we go. But this is cool. You can see there how the cameras are orientated. It was kind of like a bit weird, isn't it, almost?
Well, you got the one for the, looking straight down the tail basically to the top of the vehicle, and one specifically for that port wing.
Indeed. And look at this little Easter egg. Look in the corner there. There's a shuttle carrier aircraft waiting to give
Ooh.
Columbia a trip back to KC.
Oh, it looks almost tiny.
It does, doesn't it? It's cute. It's like waiting to pick the kid up after school, isn't it? Like, come on, have you finished? Have you finished? Come on, I'm going to pick you up and take you home now. There we go. Another photograph there, just from a side angle. Again, I can probably scroll in. Look at this. This is great. You
Oh,
can see every single tile's got the code on it. And that's something. Oh, Jack, Starship. You don't see any numbers written on the tiles, do we? Or do we?
No. They just write "okay" on them, which is hilarious because you get a close up photo and it's just like hundreds of tiles, each one with the word "okay" written on it in silver Sharpie, and it's like, man, I bet that person's wrist hurts at the end of every day.
Okay.
But I do think there are ways to identify individual tiles and whatnot. I mean, there has to be for engineering purposes, right? Like if you have a particular tile go bad, you want to check the tiles that it was built with, ones in the same lot or in the same production sequence or whatever. I think that information, if I'm not mistaken, which I could be, is on the underside of the tile.
Also, let's not forget about the smiley face. Smiley face tile, yeah. One tile with a smiley face on it. So that was already a good tile that was going to stay on the actual vehicle for its relevant mission. I've got a question, actually. I want to segue this a little bit because we were talking about the abort mode on the fact that they don't have one on the Space Shuttle during First Stage Descent, let's face it, apart from RTLS, which was not really fun. But Michael asks, could they use Super Dracos on HLS serve as an abort engine if it was to abort? So right, we've got the thrusters. We've seen conjecture because people thought it was floodlights at first, but we think it's thrusters on the HLS Starship. Let's say HLS Starship is launching. See, the problem here, Michael, is that HLS will be in orbit before it even gets a crew, so it wouldn't be really needed an abort mode. But let's pretend the HLS Starship is launching from the ground with crew on board. Could those thrusters be used to abort away from the booster? I'm going to say doesn't really need it because the abort mode in that scenario will be just separated from booster and just firing up the actual Starship and getting away. So I don't think it's needed there. The second thing being that HLS is going to be something that's going to be loitered in orbit and then they'll arrive by Orion and then board it and do it that way. So I still think we're guessing a little bit, and we are obviously guessing a little bit, but let's probably take that discussion to Starbase Live and see what people in there think, because I'm sure people got thoughts on how to do abort modes. Vargon. Hi, this is my first Shuttle Sunday. Welcome. Remember, we've got a playlist. Hang on, let's do it. Shuttle playlist. Shuttle. I can't multitask, so I'm asking me to talk and type at the same time. It's not fun. There we go. Shuttle. There's the playlist, because we started with STS-1 and gone all the way through. So we're quite depth into this already. We've still got a long way to go. We're not even halfway. But we've got a long way to go. But there's your playlist. So if it's your first Shuttle Sunday, you can catch up with other previous Shuttle Sundays as well. But your question is, how is this from a first Shuttle Sunday? My question is, were parts ever shared with other shuttles? Like, would a critical component from Challenger be swapped with Columbia? Yes. I'm thinking Ohms pods for a start, Sawyer. What else could be swapped?
I mean, the engines for sure.
Yeah.
Trying to think what else. I mean, pretty much any of the internals. Tiles, no. Thermal blanket, highly unlikely. But if you're talking internals, things inside the cabin, I don't see why you wouldn't be able to.
Yeah. The wheels, probably not, because I think they were used once.
Yeah, each of the tires was
Yep.
used once and only once.
Yeah.
Not the Canadarm, because those stayed with each vehicle.
Yeah. You got me
The
thinking.
Ohms-
Tell you
the
what, that
Ohms
was your
pods, that's crazy. I had no idea
Yeah.
about the Ohms pods being
Oh, yeah.
swappable.
Yep.
Yeah. That's why it's a great question, Vagon. First Shuttle Sunday, you've asked a great question. That's a great start to your shuttle journey. But yeah, the Ohms pods were amazing. They used to, when they were in transition retirement, we saw the orbiters rolling around without Ohms pods, and they looked weird. They looked really strange. I will find photographs for another Shuttle Sunday, by the way. But when the shuttle orbiters were retired, they would take the Ohms pods off because they would then donate the engines to the Orion program for the service module engine. And then they were basically put on spare pods that didn't have real engines for the displays, like the RS-25s were not real RS-25s. They were scrap nozzles on sticks, as I call them. The RSMEs, which were the replacement for the exhibits. But yeah, they used to take them off all the time and swap them around.
Matrix
we
makes a
see
good
it.
point also of the tail actuator on the back of Atlantis, the elevon towards the bottom, was originally Challengers.
There we go. But yeah, there'd be other things we've probably not thought of. So I'm going to ask a few shuttle people who I know if they could come up with some surprises, shall we say? And we'll mention that on a future Shuttle Sunday.
Can I
But
ask
that-
this? Can I
Yes,
ask a stupid question really quick? Sorry.
there's no such thing as a stupid question.
Well, we'll see.
I do not remember what the deal is with the Slits pod. Can you refresh me on that really quick?
Sawyer?
Yeah, that was the experiment, the Shuttle Infrared Lee Side Temperature Sensing Experiment. Basically, taking infrared images of the upper lee side parts of the port wing and the fuselage during re-entry. Basically, get all the temperature maps, so see where the heating is the most on different parts of the vehicle. And while they only used it for a couple of missions, rather than take it off and have to retile everything, they just decided to keep it all the way through the program.
Neat.
We did miss something, Sawyer, about what they can swap. Matrix has got it. Matrix has come up with an absolutely brilliant thing that I didn't realise at the time. Matrix says they occasionally use crew members from one orbit to another. There we go. Well done, Matrix. That's a winning answer. I think we can, on that bombshell, we can
Yeah.
end this Shuttle Sunday because we got a full hour in with the just one mission. The next Shuttle Sunday, your patience is required. It's not the fact that I just don't want to do it, which I don't, because it's 51L, but also we're going to have to take a lot of research on how to phrase everything because it is a lot involved with this one, 51L. It's not a fun Shuttle Sunday. There'll be no joking on this one because it's a disaster that we can't really underplay it any way whatsoever, and we're the last people to do that, but we're going to cover it. So that'll be the next Shuttle Sunday, which I'm not looking forward to at all. But we've got to 61C. We're going to call that a day. First, I want to thank Jay in the background for making sure the videos work because they're always fun with my laptop and the old VHS videos being put onto VLC and trying to get them play. So thank you to Jay in the background. Also, thank you to Jack who joined in. Thank you, Jack.
You got it.
And also thank you to Sawyer for Sawyer Flexes, Sawyer Facts, and Sawyer Knowledge. Thank you, Sawyer.
It's Shuttle. I could talk about Shuttle for hours and hours. I love this stuff. Thank you for giving me a platform for it.
Awesome. So, until next time, remember this is recorded, so you'll check the channel later on today, and it'll be on there as a recording. If you missed any part, you can scrub through it and what have you. But until next time, thanks for joining us, and goodbye.